And that's a lot of beans in very little space. Guten gardening, everybody. Now, I think my least favorite gardening memory from when I was younger involved a 5-gallon bucket and my grandfather telling me to go out into the field and pick a 5-gallon bucket full of green beans. I know they were bush beans. I know I sat on that bucket very uncomfortably and filled it up for probably what seemed to me like hours, although I'm sure it was probably only about a half an hour because I remember there were a lot of beans. I didn't enjoy that experience for a couple of reasons. One, it was hot out. I was young. There were probably other things I would have rather been doing, but also it's not exactly something comfortable on the back. Well, today I'm going to show you some of what we have growing in our GreenStalk vertical gardens, and particularly, as the title of this video suggests, one way that you can grow beans and not have that discomfort on your back, because vertical gardening is one way to grow a lot in a little bit of space, and it can be a real back saver. Now, before I show you the green beans, and there are plenty in that GreenStalk, I want to show you some of the other vegetables that we're growing in our GreenStalks here at Guten Gardening, because one of the things we're looking for in terms of a vertical garden space is flexibility in what we're growing, meaning that we should be able to, in whatever vertical tower that we're trying to garden in, not be limited to the types of vegetables that we want to grow. And so we certainly found that to be the case here with our GreenStalks. Now, an example of that is in the GreenStalk right beside me, and that is some of our potatoes. So we're growing potatoes vertically in a couple of different garden spaces, but the GreenStalk here, this is our 3rd year growing potatoes. We had a red, white, and blue harvest one year when we were growing our potatoes. Very beautiful. We got some nice results, and that encouraged us to continue growing potatoes in the GreenStalk. This season, I have 3 or 4 different varieties as well that are growing in here, and I gotta say they're starting to flower, which means we're not too far off from what should be another nice GreenStalk harvest. One of the things that is true about a lot of these vegetables, and the reason why we grow a lot in our GreenStalks, is we have a pretty limited space here. And if you think about potatoes, that potato plant as it grows can take up a decent amount of space. And we have a 5-tier original series here, which means that we have 6 pockets times 5 tiers, so 30 pockets here. And we've got a seed potato in each one of these. So that means we have 30 potato plants growing in just over, I would say if you count the spread of the plants, probably 6 square feet. Let's give it 6 square feet. So not a lot of horizontal space taken up by this planting. So that's one of the benefits of vertical gardening, and one of the things we like about our GreenStalk. And potatoes aren't the only wider spreading plant that we're growing vertically to save a good amount of space. We also have, for the last 2 years now, grown sweet potatoes in our GreenStalk, and we've got 4 or 5 different varieties of sweet potatoes growing in this GreenStalk, which is another one of our original series GreenStalks. One of the things that's really nice about growing sweet potatoes vertically, as I mentioned, the vines for these sweet potatoes, whether you're talking about vining or bush type, are still going to spread a good bit. But what we like to do is to take a bush variety of sweet potato, which doesn't have as long of vines, put that on the lower tier, and then put the more vining type varieties up at the higher tiers so they can just grow their vines down. And so in this planter, we've got 30 sweet potato slips growing in here that are hopefully going to produce another set of really nice sweet potatoes. One of the things that's so nice about vertical gardening is truly it opens up the doors to maybe plant varieties that you didn't think you had room to grow. For those of us who have very limited spaces, let's say you're just growing on a patio, you're not going to be able to have the space normally to grow sweet potatoes, etc. necessarily, and still have space to grow other vegetables. But this opens that door to some of us who have that limited space. Now, all the GreenStalks that I've shown you so far, and this one included, are the original series. These are 10-inch tiers, and there are 5 tiers for each of these setups. So that's why I talk about 30 pockets to grow in. And in this one particularly behind us, this is one that we started indoors and then we brought outdoors. And so I'm going to show you what's growing in here right now, or some of the things that are growing, and some of the food that we're getting off of this one. I just took off the lid for this because I want to harvest the beets that are in here.
We've been working on these beets and the beet greens here for months now, and I've got two of the biggest beets that I've ever seen grown in a GreenStalk. So GreenStalk, if you watch this, you have to let us know if this is a world record GreenStalk beet. These are massive beets in here. So we've been getting beet greens, and now I'm going to harvest these beets out of here as well. And on top of that, we have a whole bunch of radishes that have gone to seed. When we planted these, we got them at a hot time in the summer, and that's one of the things that can happen whenever you're planting something like radishes in the heat of the summer, and you'll see that elsewhere as well, that they can definitely go to seed. Well, when that happens, all is not lost. For one, we did a video where we talked about the fact that radish seed pods, radish flowers, those are all edible and quite delicious. But also, this is an opportunity to take some of the varieties maybe of your favorite radishes and get some more seeds from them so that you can do that planting again the next season. Now on top of that, we have some of our eggplants growing in here as well. Eggplant does really nicely in GreenStalks. We found eggplant and peppers also do quite well, although none of our peppers are quite to that point of maturity yet. And of course, in this one we have some kale, and I say of course because we've talked about kale in the past and how that is one of our essential vegetables in the garden. It's such a wonderful, nutritious green, and it's also something that stores very well, very easily for a long period of time. And then finally in this one, I'm going to show you the callaloo that we're growing. Some people know it as pigweed, but this variety of callaloo is something that's commonly eaten in the Caribbean. And I gotta tell you, you can eat it raw as well if you want, but it's definitely better cooked. There's some great recipes out there, and you can let us know in the comments if you'd like to see a callaloo recipe from us.
Now, before I go any further, I have to take a moment to say thank you so much to GreenStalk. They're not sponsoring this video, but earlier this season, they were generous enough to gift us a couple of GreenStalks so that we could take some of our older GreenStalks and give them back to some of our community members. So we actually delivered 5 of our GreenStalks to 5 different community members. We cleaned them up. I mean, one of the nice things about a GreenStalk is that they're not going to disintegrate, break down, even after a couple of years. So, and their warranty is only for 5 years, but we've had these outside in our Zone 5 weather now. We're going on to our 3rd and then 4th seasons here, and there's no warping, no sign of damage or anything like that. So we definitely want to give a big thank you to GreenStalk for that. Again, this vertical garden setup is saving us a ton of space and helping us to grow way more food than we could otherwise. Now, I've been showing you the original series. Here is a 7-tier leaf series. So the main difference between this and the original series is that the tiers are only 7 inches deep. So something that doesn't need as deep of a root structure like a lot of our greens. They work really well in this leaf system, and boy, do we have a lot of greens growing in this GreenStalk. All right, up top we've got more radishes growing. You know, one of the things about radishes, in addition to the ones that have gone to seed, and we eat those seed pods, we eat the flowers, etc., we can also eat the leaves. So when we harvest these, if the leaves are still healthy, we'll eat those, and we'll eat, of course, the radishes below. So take a look at this. This is our white icicle radish, an absolutely delicious radish, a little bit milder taste in my opinion. And then directly below that we've got some of our mustard greens. These giant red mustard greens have a really unique taste. Well, mustard greens always have a bit of a different taste in comparison to a lot of our other greens, a little bit spicier, especially as the leaves get bigger. But they're a delicious addition to salads. Let us know if you like mustard greens in the comments below and how you like to prepare them. And our lettuce is looking phenomenal here. Look at the green on these leaves. Look how healthy and big these leaves are. These are absolutely delicious, a great addition to any salad. And then we have our kale. This is red Russian kale, which happens to be the variety that for whatever reason performs the best, or at least that's been our experience, has performed the best in our garden. And of course we have some lacinato kale as well because that's our favorite kale, but this red Russian really grows nicely. Oh, and I don't want to miss our Swiss Swiss chard. Take a look at these Swiss chard leaves. This is, I've talked about this quite often, but in terms of taste, this is one of my absolute favorite greens. Swiss chard has a delicious smell, delicious aroma to it. It's fantastic raw, it's fantastic steamed. So I talked about this a little bit at the beginning of the video, but we want to be able to grow variety in a vertical setup. That's why we're able to save so much space. Think about how much these 7 tiers, 7 times 6, so 42 pockets here. So think about how much space these vegetables would be taking up if we weren't growing them vertically. I hope you enjoyed that tour. So let's get back to our green beans. One of the things that makes picking green beans, specifically bush green beans, challenging is the fact that they don't grow very tall. So unless you have them in a raised bed or a vertical garden setup like this one, you're going to be leaning over, trying your best to pick as many of these as possible, feeling the pain in the back, especially if you have a lot to pick. And one of the nice things about a vertical setup like this leaf system, which is another 7-tier GreenStalk leaf system, is that I can choose what I plant at each tier. Now I've actually loaded this entire planter down with green beans, so I'm still going to have to reach down to the bottom, but these top tiers are so easy to access. So what I could have done is planted a couple tiers of beans and then a couple tiers of something that took less time to come in here and harvest, but that's okay. I wanted a lot of beans. I planted 2 bush bean plants per pocket, so 7 times 6 times 2 means 84 bean plants in here, which means a whole lot of green beans. And I happen to prefer bush beans over pole beans in terms of taste, in terms of texture, etc. And this is our 3rd or 4th harvest off of here. So we've been trying to stay on top of harvesting these, because what we've heard and what we've learned is that the more you harvest beans, the more that they're going to produce over the season. If we leave them on here toward the end of the season, leave a few beans on here to grow and mature to a point where we can then save those beans for planting next season, that's fine. But especially early on, we want to make sure that we're harvesting regularly. I'll also point out that one of the things that we should have done with these bush beans, and this is a new experience, our first time growing green beans in a GreenStalk vertical garden, or growing them vertically at all for that matter, one of the things that I should have done is to support the plants a little bit better. I'm thinking it's a bush plant, so it's probably not a big deal, but the stem in a couple places has bent over. Now that hasn't stopped it from growing and producing and providing us more beans, but it's something I should have taken into consideration. And GreenStalk certainly sells plant supports for that exact reason. We've also built for our potatoes, which have those nice long stems as well. We've also built our kind of custom supports, and that's something that we definitely should have put in place for these bush beans. But hey, live and learn. It's all an experience. We're certainly very far from perfect. And I should point out that we're getting good growth all the way down from top to bottom, because we're sitting these in a place where they get good sun the whole way around the GreenStalk. You know what else I noticed? I'm sitting down beside the tower right now because it's even easier to look up. You can see the beans from the underside. That's so much easier than trying to search everywhere for them when they're growing in ground. Take a look at the harvest off of here. And this is one of many, e pluribus unum. Out of many harvests, this is just one that we're getting from this GreenStalk. Well, that was quite literally the easiest bean picking experience in my life. And given the fact that I had just harvested maybe 2 days ago, the fact that I'm getting this much off here, and I'm going to be able to come back in a couple more days, harvest even more. Oh, I see one. Harvest even more beans out here once they're all ready to go. We're going to get multiple harvests out of this. It's an easy way to grow green beans, along with so many other vegetables that you saw as well. This is such an easy way to grow green beans, along with the many other vegetables, and there are plenty more that we haven't even tried yet, plenty more that we've already had success with, but so many options here that won't break your back. Well, folks, we hope you enjoyed today's video and found it useful. If you did, and you're interested in a GreenStalk vertical garden, there is a $10 off coupon that you can use. It's down in the description of this video. You can follow the link and use coupon code Guten at checkout. You get an additional $10 off your order of $75 or more. And GreenStalk often has really good sales as well, so you can get an even bigger discount if you take the time and shop during one of those sales. Well, if you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to give us a like, leave us a comment, remember to share and subscribe, and most importantly, remember, When you're with us, you are good to grow.